And welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show with my man, Anthony Schlegel, right here on the Big Play Network, coming to you each and every single week, covering the Ohio State Buckeyes. And man, Schlegs, does it feel good to be coming off of a win? We're going to break down that Notre Dame game. We've got fan reactions. We've got bye week protocols. We'll take a look around the NCAA as well. But man, Schlegs, we win. Ohio State wins that game. 17-14 in South Bend. I'll tell you what, that thing was worth the price of admission, and that was an expensive ticket.
Yep. Let me tell you guys, that was a game. Bob, you and I have played in games like that where these guys were emotionally, physically spent. I guarantee you they go into the locker room after, they're juiced up, they're dancing around, coach is going to talk, they're going to take a seat, and they're just going to honestly, if that was me back in college, I'd throw a big dip in and I'm just going to sit there for 45 minutes. Don't even want to move because of the physicality of that game. But that was fun to watch, man. That was everything that we wanted in that game, man.
Yeah. It was all there. And if you look at this, both sides. So Ohio State finds a way to get it done. You feel pretty good when you're up 10-0. It's like, oh, you're about to pull away. And I'll say this. Before we start breaking down individual points, I believe that game, it very easily could have been a 10-17 point victory if there was a couple things that went another way. And so you look at Ohio State, there's the elation, there's the jubilation. Yes. Ryan Day, Lou Holtz, we'll get into that. I love Chesty Ryan, and he loves his guys. And everybody wanted him to, you want to see more emotion, you want to see more passion. Well, you know what? You got it. They brought it to you in a big way. Ryan, after the game, he was coaching to win. Yes. And I thought they played well. I thought they played tough with all of that. But then you look at the other side, I'm sitting there watching, Schlegs, it's the last play of the game, last play of the world. And my dad would always say this. Lancaster ran the wing tee with my dad for so long. They ran the football. There's a program of toughness, effort, all those things. He loved going for it on fourth down, and especially on 4th and 1. And my dad, coaches would look at him sometimes. He goes, if we can't get a yard, we don't deserve to win.
Yep.
He goes, that's the reality. He goes, this is what we were built to do. This is what we do. We run the football. We are a tough program. And so we're going to call the game as such. And so I don't care if it's 4th and 1 and we're on our own 35-yard line. If I feel like this is this point in the game that we need to keep the ball and keep moving, we're going for it because we should be able to get it. And so I love that Ryan was aggressive. Believe me, 2 of them went wrong. 1 went right. Maybe Notre Dame had a little bit of assistance on that with having 10 guys on the field. But I love it because you're on that side of it now, Schlegel, the jubilation, the excitement. Yes. The other side of that, we've been in that locker room before, losing to Texas our senior year.
Losing Penn State, same type of game, physical.
Oh, physical, close. And it comes down to the last play, last couple minutes of the game. Physical, tough, emotional swings back and forth. And I remember someone asking me after the game, and I think this quote, it's still hanging on my parents' fridge, if I'm not mistaken. I see it every once in a while. So someone I know has it pinned up. My dad laminates everything. So it's, laminated. I remember saying after the game, and they ask about it, it's like, well, someone took your dog right from you, went outside and shot it, and then you had to go pick him up and go bury him. And I'm like, that's the feeling of pouring so much into that. And it's right there, and you want the win. You've worked so hard, and then you've got to find a way to bury all the pain, the despair, and find a way to go on with the season. And it's hard. And Notre Dame's sitting there today, probably trying to figure out how the heck we had 10 guys on the field at the end. How do we let them score? They drove down here, all this thing. There's a lot of plays that could have broke things different ways, but it's an emotional time. So I feel for Marcus as a friend in that regard, but so excited, Schlegs, for this win.
Absolutely.
And when you look at it, the team that ran the ball best would win the game. Notre Dame outrushed Ohio State. They had about, I think, $176 on the ground. Ohio State, Schlegs, had, I think, 125. But Ohio State 4.7 per carry, Notre Dame 4.5. And I was like, the metric, you're going to figure it out what it is. It's not always just total yards. It's not yards per carry. But the team that can run it when they needs to. And Ohio State, Schlegs, was able to run it when they needed to.
Yep, absolutely. And if you go look at that, we talked about this, Bob, what Marcus was trying to do. And you go back to, going for it and not taking a field goal when they're on the 1 yard line. And he went for it. Remember, Notre Dame missed a field goal. So
Yep.
right there, now they're going to drive 99 yards. I'm going to go for it. I want to turn that 3 and flip it and make it a 10-point, because if they got it right, so now I go get 7. I like the call. All right. So I'm not going to really dissect all the different calls in there, right, that he did, but I definitely would have gone for it. But then to me, what this boiled down to, Bob, that time of possession dictated those things. We said that.
Yeah.
Notre Dame had it for 35 minutes. Ohio State had it for 25 minutes. That dictated the game. But I tell you what, though, man, hats off to Kyle McCord. If you'd have said he would have came in here and outperformed Hartman on this stage, who would have said that? A guy that's in 6 years, Just for Men commercials, the hair dye, the black, I love it.
50 starts.
50 starts, and he comes in there 4th, right? And he does that at the end of the game. Guys, listen, man, that's big time ball. Also, Notre Dame, 4 games in a row this season, over 40 points. You can't escape that, right? Like, think about our defense and what they've done and how they've grown from last year to this year. Don't let that escape you. Was it perfect all the time? No, but I tell you this, man, they were 0 for 2 on 4th down. Guys were flying around. That one where I think it was Hancock and Styles on the side, boom, 4th down. That was a huge play. JTT, we didn't affect the quarterback like some of us wanted to on the perimeter, but they got some penetration in the front. It wasn't there, but they got their hands up. They knocked 3 balls down. That's part of it, guys. So when you look at this full game, I walk away very satisfied. 1, because you got the win. 2, how you got the win, because that was a tough drive, Bob. That 65 yards, minute 25. Toughness.
Kyle McCord, I mean, he stared into the eyes of defeat and did not blink. I mean, I'm not saying I was worried, but that was a big moment. And that was, I think, a defining moment for him on that drive, being able to go out there and have the success that he did, throwing the football, slinging it around. Gosh, and they had 8 drives, Schlegs. That's all they had. 4 in the first, 4 in the second. Wow. 8 football drives, and they were terrific on them. I didn't necessarily love the 2 4th down calls that Ryan had. The play action, I get it. I understand it. I probably would have called that on the 3rd and 1, maybe saved more of a run or a sneak for the 4th and 1. And then probably on the other one, I'm not a huge fan of the little motion. I know Andy Reid's done that, and there's some plays, and Emeka's a strong runner. Yeah. But what it came down to it, they lined up and they went and got it. And I know Notre Dame only had 10 guys on the field now that we found out, but listen, that's a coaching error as much as anything. That's a player error. How can you be a linebacker lined up there, Schlegs, and not know that there's not a guy in front of you? I don't understand that.
Right. I don't either. But let's go back to that drive, though, Bob. Think about this, man. Julian Fleming, he only had 2 receptions, 8 yards. Guess what? 4th and 7 conversion. Yep. Huge play. Then he had Marvin Harrison Jr., 19 yards. Then he had a back shoulder to Emeka on a bust. And then he had a back shoulder to Emeka for 21 yards that got us all the way down there. Those are critical throws, right? In a huge moment in your 4th start, and they did it, and they got the win. Complete team effort. I was spent. I know how spent they were, and I'm truly proud of our Buckeyes.
One other thing, I don't want to diminish this as well. Kyle McCord, he put together another drive, which I believe they ended up punting on in the second half. I mean, he throws a strike to Emeka that would have been a 1st down, and then it gets called back because of the penalty for Josh Fryer.
Right,
jumping
that was
on
huge.
Dudes jumping on dudes, Javante Jean-Baptiste. And by the way, people have asked me about that call, and they're like, I thought, like, what rule was that? I go, it's an unnecessary roughness call. I go, it's a very subjective call. You see that stuff happen a lot. I mean, he blocked the dude, he's to the ground. The play's still going on. He could have still done something and impacted the play. So he doesn't know Kyle, when he is throwing the ball, when it's left his hand. You're an offensive lineman. So
right.
I don't know. And that was another drive that Kyle, stepped up in a big moment, bang, went in. And let's not also forget the pass that he threw to Emeka that he dropped in the back of the end zone. And he zipped that. That was a laser shot into the back. They didn't score on that. So you start looking at some of these plays that Kyle made that were either negated or weren't completed by the receiver. Ooh, gosh, there was a lot of meat on that bone. And I'm excited for how well he played in that big moment. It was huge. We got some other takeaways. So after this, we're going to come back. We'll go around college football, and we're also going to talk about some of our biggest takeaways from this Buckeye game as well, because there's a couple little nuggets in there I think we can dive into. before we go to the rest of the college football landscape. So great weekend as always. Bucks moving up in the polls too. Love to see the respect and a huge win on the road at night in South Bend. So my man Anthony Schlegel, it's the Bobby Carpenter Show right here on the Big Play Network. And we're back here, Bobby Carpenter Show, Anthony Schlegel right there, Big Play Network, going to provide you all the news you need around the college football landscape, but a couple big takeaways, Schlegel, that we want to talk about from the game as well. Two important points that I think need to be talked about from this Buckeyes 17-14 win over Notre Dame in South Bend. Talked about third downs. Ohio State has struggled, not I would say struggled, relative to how good they've been, which is about 50% since Ryan Day's been here. Last year, they were phenomenal. I believe, what were they, 10 of 17 on third downs? That's big time ball. That is huge. Defensively, 5 of 10, so not great. But Notre Dame set themselves up. They put them in some third and shorts, and they were able to matriculate the ball, but the defense kept playing. They kept swinging and did a fantastic job. And then the other big play, we always talk about pressure by the ends, and that's what everybody wanted to see. Could Jack Sawyer get there? Could JT Tuimoloau get there? Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Kerr, these guys going to provide some pressure. And they got there, and I think they forced some balls a little earlier, and they did some stuff late in the game, which was big, and they forced Sam Hartman to get it out of his hand. But the bat down on the screen by JTT, huge, because it stopped the clock. Like that was a play when I saw Marcus, I'm like, I get it. You're throwing it. It's a screen. Worst case, you don't get any yards. But I'm like, man, it stopped it. If not, there's another 30 or 40 seconds that go rolling off. And when you have to drive the length of the field, as we saw, like every second in that game was critical.
Yeah, every rep matters, guys. That's the thing, man. I mean, though you might not be getting the pressure that you want, though you might not be having the type of historic game that you want in that, guess what? Every play matters. And he stepped up in that moment and made that play that allowed us to then get the ball back 65 yards in a minute 25. To your point, does that drive happen when you're under a minute? Probably not. It's going to have to be longer shots because you got to go 65 yards to score. So that being said, everybody has a role to play, and we all have to play our role. And you don't know when that time is going to step up, but you got to go make that play. And we saw the cool thing was Sonny Styles on that fourth down, he stepped up and made a play. When guys had to go step up and make that play, they did. Are there things they got to work on? 100%. We'll talk about that in the bye week and where we see the Buckeyes right now. But I'm just really proud of the grit and the toughness. Because again, toughness is the ability to compete and perform at an elite level, regardless of physical, mental, and emotional discomfort. That was all in this game. Everything about this game was a tough game. Both sides. And I tip my hat to them. You got to tip your hats off, man, to the guys that play the game, the men in the arena. And Ohio State came out on top. And I'm proud of them. And I'm excited to see where they go, for the rest of the season.
Quickly, and we'll get into Ryan Day a little bit later in the show, but the comments by Lou Holtz that we saw, the toughness element, I was happy the way that Ryan responded to that. And I think that it's important that he addressed it in the pregame a little bit, but then especially after the game talked about it, because that's a direct shot at him and how his program. I love Lou Holtz. He coached at Ohio State. He's an Ohio guy, but I mean, the question of program's toughness, that Ryan takes offense to that, and he should, because his guys are tough.
You know what? And he said, put on the tape, because if you put on the tape last year, we outrushed them 172-76. That's a fact. All right. And then you look at some of the guys, listen, Bob, you've made this point. In order to get to those moments where you play those type of teams in the Fiesta Bowls and in the Rose Bowls and in the national championships, guess what? Notre Dame has not been there.
Yeah.
Ohio State has been there. Okay. And you look at the first loss that he had to Clemson, right? It was kind of bad. We should have won that game. You guys all remember kind of that one, right?
Oh, the Shaun Wade hit and everything else.
Shaun Wade, all that stuff, right? Then the next year they beat Clemson. They go to the Natty. Alabama was by far the best team in college football that year. Devontae Smith went off. The next year we lost to Oregon. Remember, Jim Knowles went there. We had some defensive things. Al Rush us, then we had the Michigan loss. But then they beat a really tough team in Utah doing how they had to do it, which was through the air. That's okay, right? You played Georgia last year. You lose by a field goal that we should have had.
Them. You ran the ball on them.
So, guys, listen, man, the toughness aspect, pump the brakes. And I love what he said, Bob. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So let's take a little look around college football here. Pac-12, what do they have? 6 teams ranked. I mean, I think they might be the best conference in college football. It's kind of crazy to say that and crazy to think about. But you look at some of these teams that are rolling out there. I mean, you got Utah, Oregon looks really good because
They do.
I think Colorado's a decent team. They're not great. Probably weren't 19th. They're probably a 7, maybe 8 win team this year. But Oregon played great. Washington looked fantastic. Like the Pac-12 is really rolling. They look extremely, extremely good. And like I said, 16's in the top 19 there. And I don't know if you caught any of that Florida State Clemson game, much closer than I thought.
Yep.
And you're talking about, is Clemson done? I think they're done with the national title picture, but I mean, they had a field goal chance to go up, like a 25-yarder that they missed at the end of the game. And it was devastating. I feel bad for the kid, but man, you've got to take advantage of that. And I don't think Florida State's maybe quite as good as we thought they were.
You know what, though? Here's the thing, guys. One, it's awesome because right now, as it stands, 6 of the top 10 teams, as we bring in Oregon, as we bring in, USC, like as we bring in Washington, they're all in there. Guess what? The Big Ten is just getting better. All right. But if you go look at those teams, Bob, what do they have? Veteran quarterbacks. And I'll say this real quick. Here's something else about Ryan Day in the transfer portal. Hey, guys, guess what? When Penix was at Indiana, everybody's like, this guy's terrible. He goes to Washington. He's lighting it up. So don't get on the player, man. Sometimes it's coaching and scheme and fit. All right. So now he's at Washington. There's a fit there. But then that Jean-Baptiste, he was at Ohio State, number 1 for Notre Dame. After the game, I saw this on the TV, and he went over and he hugged Ryan Day. And Ryan Day embraced him. That's the brotherhood. I want you to be successful. You're at Notre Dame. You played a hell of a football game.
He had a good game.
That's kind of the things that we're seeing in the portal. Guys get an opportunity to go somewhere else and do some things I really love. But the fact that the Pac-12 is loaded, and they're loaded because they have really good veteran quarterbacks in that conference right now. That's not going to be the case necessarily when they all leave next year. However, it's great to see that competitive excellence over there on the West Coast as they join the Big Ten.
Well, you look at Oregon and Washington, they've got 2 transfer quarterbacks, Bo Nix and Michael Penix. These guys are basically like Sam Hartman. They've started 1 million games in their career. And when you've started 50 games, like Sam Hartman was unfazed in that game. He played well. Like Bo Nix, Michael Penix, those dudes are playing good football because they've just seen a lot of football.
Yes.
And I think Michael Penix definitely an NFL guy, but they're having a lot of success there because of that. And I mean, Oregon, they beat up bad. They could have scored. And Dan Lanning, Oregon's head coach, man, they could have probably scored 80 on Colorado if they wanted. And I'm not done with Dion either. I think a lot of people are waiting for him to lose just so they could throw shade and say, hey, this isn't working, whatever, this nonsense. I mean, he's doing a good job developing players, and they're obviously not there. And he's told them that, like, hey, take advantage of it now, because when I get all my guys and they actually have a defense, Schlegel, that can stop somebody, they can't stop. I mean, they can't stop anything right now, so it's bad. They couldn't play dead in the Western on defense, for heaven's sake.
I'll say this real fast about it. I love what the coach said for Oregon, and he rightly should. Here's the deal. Prime knows the biggest thing right now, his biggest asset of recruiting and promoting Colorado is him. He's going to use it. Guess what? Fox Big Noon Kickoff is there for a second time. Guys, Colorado has 1 winning season since 2006. That's a fact. They won 10 games 1 year. Okay. The most they've ever won before that during that period was 6. Other than that, it's 4 or 5. They were 1-11 last year. He's going to promote it because his name is affiliated with Colorado. Don't lose sight of that. And we already talked about Colorado and our expectation of them early on in these shows, Bob. They don't have the O-line and D-line capable of being able to play against the Utahs and the Oregons and the USCs of the world right now. It's just the fact. They got some really good skill players, and they're going to get some guys that are going to commit there because of their head coach and what he's done to elevate the program of Colorado. Because nobody else, you hire anybody else, nobody's talking about Colorado.
Exactly. All right. So coming up, Buckeyes have a bye week this week. No game. They're off. What's the protocol look like? What happens? What will they be doing? Would have been different with a loss versus a win. They got a big win, so they got some time to celebrate. Schlegel and I will break it all down for you. It's the Bobby Carpenter Show right here on the Big Play Network. And welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, celebrating Ohio State's big win against Notre Dame up in South Bend, 17-14. Who do the Bucs have next week, Schlegs? Well, They're off. They don't have anybody. They'll be taking the week. And Ryan gave the guys the day off on Sunday. Usually they come in, watch film. And that's kind of typical for a bye week, especially, you're playing a night game, you're getting in late. And
Yes.
hopefully the coaches had a couple cold pops, relaxed. The players did as well, and really got a chance to kind of kick back, because that was an emotional climax that is exhausting. And so they've got some guys that are beat up. But what's the bye week protocol like, Schlegs?
So you're going to come in Monday, watch the film, train, probably do like their little run through, walk through type thing, make their corrections and adjustments. They'll probably practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Tuesday will be good and tough, physical. Wednesday, it will be kind of the same. I actually envision this. This is where you start to already put in some Maryland stuff.
Yep.
Back in the day, we used to also have a little bit of more emphasis on the Michigan game during this time, but it's also a time for development for those other guys to get some reps with the coaches being focused on them, allow the older guys to kind of take it in a little bit early, but they're still going to hang in with that, their lift progression, recovery. This is an opportunity to get healthy. And it's an opportunity to get a little, 3-day weekend in, kind of enjoy yourself, ready to come back. Cause now I hate the fact that it's early, though it's opening.
Well,
it's going to be opening season, deer season in Ohio. So they get to be there for that, which is kind of cool. But, I don't mind it, especially coming off of this type of game, Bob, that it is this kind of early. Cause you're going to have Maryland, Purdue, and then Penn State, and
it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice you had it like Notre Dame climax, kind of the, non-conference. I know you had Indiana in there, but you have your 4 games. You come through camp, and it honestly works out pretty well, given the fact that Marvin Harrison Jr., he rolled his ankle pretty significantly. Now I know he came back, he made some plays, but let's not fool ourselves. I thought it was going to be a high ankle. I thought he would be out.
Yep.
So this will give him some time to now rest this thing. Maybe you rest against Maryland, give yourself, a good 2.5 weeks to let that thing heal up. And let's not be kidding ourselves about Maryland either. I mean, they're going to put some stuff in. They're 4-0. They beat up Michigan State. They have Indiana this week. They'll be probably an undefeated team in a few weeks when they come to the shoe for a 3:30 kick that I believe is going to be on the Peacock. So a little streaming action for you for the Buckeyes. But I don't know if you remember this, Schlegs, back our bye week, our senior year, like we had Thursday night, we practiced Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I think we even practiced Friday. Tress would have us and then cut us loose. No, maybe practice Thursday, one of the days. I don't know. Cut us loose pretty early on Friday so we get back, watch our high school football games. But we all went out, like the whole team went down to Brothers, down in the Arena District. We call it the All Brothers team. There's like 40 guys there. It was awesome. Guys from the offense, defense, everybody went out together and had a blast.
Oh, yeah.
Serving each other some drinks and shots. And I wrote the list of all the dudes on the board in the locker room. I don't know if everyone liked it, the coaches knew that, but you know what? That's like a team building thing. That was an event, and you have to have that stuff to be able to have that bond. You talk about the brotherhood, like the brotherhood's just not Schlegs going to practice every day. It's hanging out, like Cade and Tommy and Steele. Like those guys have dudes over. They have little euchre tournaments, and like I think they play bridge together. I mean, they're like old ladies.
Probably they are.
You know, it's fun. That's the stuff in the bye week that you get a chance to do, because you can kind of downshift out of 5th gear and maybe get to more of a medium pace in 2nd or 3rd.
Yeah, it's critical that they have to take a little bit of time for themselves, because, I mean, you're playing 12, 13, 14, 15 games, right, to win the national championship now. That's a lot of games, man. That's a long year coming off of camp. Still, I mean, obviously go to school, whether it's online or in person, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of extra things that are out there. So they're dealing with that. It's a time to reset, refocus, and get your mind ready to handle this Big Ten slate that they got coming up with, like you said, man, a hot Maryland coming in at 3:30.
And Maryland's gonna be good. I mentioned probably be 5-0. Getting there, Mike Loxley has turned them around. One of the other things I always like to do during the bye week is it's a good time, because during training camp they only have 1 practice a day, so they still get to lift. But it's hard to keep your body in good physical shape during the season because you're beat up. You don't have as much time to lift. And you want to stay strong. That's the key. Like, as you see teams getting stronger throughout the season on the field, a lot of that is based upon the weight room. And so this week too, hey, get a couple good lifts in. You don't have a game, so you don't have to worry about, fatiguing yourself and going through all those things. So spend some extra time in the weight room, get your body right, get feeling good, and make sure that, when the next 8 games, the big push here, that you're going to be physically and mentally ready to go.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, man. Right now, this week in the weight room, they have opportunity to get some extra lifts. Bob, you, me and AJ, we trained 4 days a week, maybe even 5. I don't even remember. We trained a lot. But honestly, you want to continue to not just stay stagnant, right? You want to continue to improve. You want to continue to be stronger. And guess what? Just so everybody out there that knows, in season, volume is the killer, because you got to remember, you get volume at practice. So intensity in the weight room is king. Now, on a bye week, you can get a little bit more volume because those guys that play, their volume on the field is going to be reduced. So there's some things that you can do on that bye week that you normally wouldn't do during a regular week. However, they need to come out of this feeling strong, ready to play. The freshest team wins, and now you have an opportunity to go do that so they can get ready for Maryland while developing younger guys on the field and continuing to improve the things that you need to improve upon as a team that we'll discuss later.
All right. Coming up, the state of the Buckeyes, 4 games in. What looks good? What looks bad? What do they need to improve on during this bye week? Are they what we thought they were? Or is there something missing? Got all that coming up for you. It's the Bobby Carpenter Show on the Big Play Network. And welcome back in to the Bobby Carpenter Show with my man Anthony Schlegel here on the Big Play Network. Buckeyes get the big win, got the bye week, 17-14 over Notre Dame. 65 plays the Bucks ran to Notre Dame's 64 in the game. However, Notre Dame controlled the football for 35 of the potential 60 minutes. And want to take a look now, Schlegs, at kind of where this Ohio State team is. Where their places in the Big Ten. Do we feel better about certain things? Do we feel worse about them? We had some big questions coming into the season that we needed to have answered, mostly surrounding Kyle McCord, surrounding the offensive line, and then potentially the defense as well, and what they would be. And we knew that none of those questions would really be answered through the first 3 games. And if they were, that would be bad, because that would mean that there were obviously more severe problems than we initially anticipated. We finally found out about Kyle McCord and what he was and what he was able to do in the game. What was he? 21 of 37, 240 yards, a couple drops in there, somehow an incompletion to Marvin that they had. That
was terrible.
That he was out of bounds. I'm not sure exactly how they said the ball came loose, because it didn't. He threw a strike to Emeka that should have been a touchdown in the end zone that Emeka uncharacteristically dropped. He had a pass to Emeka through the middle of the field on a 3rd down, I believe. They got overturned because of Josh Fryer's, maybe it was on 2nd down, his unsportsmanlike conduct, excessive, roughness, whatever. I think Kyle McCord, I think a lot of the questions that they had about him, could he be the guy, and battling through this position battle early in the season with Devin Brown, Ryan icing it up heading into Western Kentucky, and now you feel good about Kyle McCord. At least I do. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, I feel great about him. I mean, that was his test. You go against Sam Hartman, started 50 games, 6-year guy, okay, older than me when I was in college, and you outshined him. And here's why you outshined him. You went 65 yards in a minute 25, and you led your team to a victory on their field. That's what it does. And so that just builds confidence.
If they don't win the game, if Chip doesn't get in, does that change your opinion of Kyle?
It doesn't change my opinion of him. I thought that it's like, man, he's close, right? Yeah. Because again, I think as fans, too many times we don't see the bigger picture, because you're absolutely right. Marvin's catch should not have been overturned. Emeka drops that ball, which we would have hit on as far as who's going to get the first touchdown. It would have been us, because we called Emeka. All right. But there were some other plays that were there. I feel very good about him now, because again, it's to get the win. It's I did everything that I had to do to put my team in the position to win. And he did that. And if you don't get that win, it's like, I was close, but he did. And that just allows you to level up, because he won it in the big game. And we remember, hey, that's the guy in his 4th start that led Ohio State 65 yards for the go-ahead touchdown at Notre Dame.
Absolutely. And the win, you don't want to play results. If Chip doesn't score, that changes nothing about Kyle's performance in this game. It wasn't like he missed somebody. He did the exact same thing, but attaching a W to it obviously feels significantly better when that happens. Offensive line, another big question. Talked about Notre Dame's front. Thought Ohio State was able to run the ball really well. People were really worried, especially after the Indiana game, Would they be able to block Notre Dame? Heck, we were struggling to block Indiana. I thought they did a pretty good job. 4.7 yards a carry over $125. And they went for it twice on fourth down, didn't get it, go for it on the final play of the game, ultimately come up with it. I thought they ran the ball pretty effectively. Trey got loose sometimes. I mean, he was close to popping some more. I mean, they were right there. I feel like this running game is developing. You look at Simmons on the left. I thought he did a pretty good job. Fryer did a pretty good job on the right side. The interior of the line looked pretty good. Kyle thought he had adequate time. I think the offensive line, while they still need to get better, Schlegel, it seems like they answered a lot of those questions as well.
Yeah, I mean, let's not kid ourselves either. Notre Dame came into this game, I believe, having, 6 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, 7 picks. I don't know, something like that. Okay, in that ballpark, and you're no turnovers. Again, when you're a young quarterback, you're not trying to press the issue. He's delivering the ball when he needs it, but he's not turning it over, because that would be a huge detriment to this game. Not only did you lose a running battle, and again, it's relative because the amount of times that they rushed it, but still the turnovers will kill you. We had 0 turnovers. He got sacked 1 time. Now, I will say this. We have seen numerous times, guess what? A toss or just like into the boundary, really bumpy. Guess what?
You love tossing the boundary.
I do not, but guess what? Trevion, he bounced it outside and beat him with speed. Like, that's what he does. And we'll go into something that I really like, our running back room. Trevion, Chip, and Mayan. We haven't seen a lot of Mayan, but Chip does a great job. He is who he is. He's a football player, everybody. Yeah. And Trevion can get the edge. He can beat him with speed. So when you are on that far hash, get it there, right? So it's you don't want to be necessarily one-dimensional like that, but allow him to utilize his best asset, which is his speed that nobody else possesses. So then you look at Cade Stover and some of the things, like in that game, guys, Marvin wasn't available. They were bracketing him. Somebody was like, we had a lot of one-on-one coverage. He has to do some things. You know what they did? The over routes were open. That's because the offensive line gave them time. You had Cade on an over. You had a Mecca on an over. Those things happened because they allowed the route progression to develop, and then Kyle was able to deliver those on time. And then, so that's the tight ends in the run.
Because you got to get to the defense.
All right, go do it.
That was the last piece. Up front, would they be able to handle Notre Dame's tackles, who were really good in the run game? And Notre Dame rushed it for $175, but I thought defensively, they didn't give up those explosive runs very often. Yes. They did a good job. For a team that came out and wanted to run the football, you held them to 14 points. And Notre Dame is a good football team. Like, this isn't a team that's going to fade away. They'll give USC all they can handle. They may win that. They'll beat Clemson. It wouldn't surprise me if they're 10-2, maybe even 11-1. And then the secondary. There was a lot of questions about those guys. I thought the secondary, Sam Hartman, he's great. They've got these big physical receivers. Can we take care of them? I thought those guys answered the bell.
Yes.
You mentioned, did Denzel Burke play? I'm like, I think so. And he's like, yeah. You didn't see him out there because you know why? He was locking dudes down.
Lockdown. I mean, hey, Bob, you hit the nail on the head. Are there things, the inside run game between the tackles that they did, when you think about Penn State and Michigan coming up, like, we're going to work on that. I got it. But to your point, the secondary in our past habitually has not been up to the challenge. I literally was like, did Denzel Burke, he had 0 tackles. Why? They didn't throw to him. Guys, he's just locking people down, and you see Hancock and Igbenuson and Ransom and Styles and Proctor. Dude, guys are flying around and hitting people. I love to see that. How about this? 34 points from the Buckeye defense in 4 games. Boom. Job well done.
Playing well. Secondary's tackling well. Line is playing well up front. It's been very, very impressive. All right. Going to take a quick break, but coming up, it's our favorite segment. We get to answer your questions each and every week. It's the Bobby Carpenter Show on the Big Play Network. All right, and we're back in to the Bobby Carpenter Show with my man, Anthony Schlegel. Favorite part of the show, answering the listener tweets, the questions that you have right here coming at us, or the X's, or whatever we're calling it now. But this one comes at us from Todd McElmurray. And what was Lou's take on the Buckeyes, or was Lou's take on the Buckeyes really wrong? Referring to Lou Holtz's comments about Ohio State being soft, Schlegs, and losing to all these great teams, not being able to run the ball.
Yeah, so I think it was wrong. I think it was he should never have said that. I mean, if you look at the tape, Ryan said put the tape on from last year, out physical in the second half. You look at the games that Ryan has lost as the head coach of Ohio State. Guess what? No, besides Clemson, Alabama, and Georgia, it's Ohio State in those big games. Guess what? Notre Dame hasn't played in those games because they haven't been at that level, right? So you take those, and there's other tweaks, and we've mentioned it earlier in the show. his statement was wrong. And Ryan, here's the thing that I love. Bob, you're a former player. I'm a former player. I'm not from the great state of Ohio. I'm from Texas, but I'm an Ohio State. I've lived in Ohio for a long time. I coached at Ohio State. Ryan gets us, meaning us former players. He gets what it means to be the Ohio State head football coach and what it means for the entire state. It's Ohio against the world. I love his comments because it just rallied his troops. That guy will go to war for them. He will stand on the soapbox and he will pound his chest for them. He doesn't do it for Ryan. He does it for them, because that right there was a direct attack on him and his team. And he sees everything that they do in the offseason and in camp and in preparation. And if you want to make that comment, make it. I'm proud that he said that, but he gets us. And I love it, Bob.
He does. And I think he handled it the right way. I mean, you got to come in there and you got to play well. And they did. You know what? On 4th and 1, the end of the game, and you're running the football. You're going for it. You're going to win it and get it done. This team is tough. And I feel like you had to address it. And the other thing, like Lou Holtz is a former coach.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about, some toughness, this and that, but like he went really all in about how it's like the program isn't tough, cited other games, big teams that they lost to. If you want to say, I think Notre Dame's going to win because they can run the football and they're maybe a little tougher, but he essentially called Ohio State soft.
Yeah.
And that is not something you do as a head coach unless you're trying to incite somebody. So I think it was wrong. Ryan has great evidence of it. Ohio against the world. He got me fired up, and I'm happy he's the head football coach at Ohio State. All right, next question coming from Matthew Paydock. Will the offense open up a bit more now that Kyle McCord has showed poise in an extremely hostile environment? Schlegel, I think it will. I think they opened it up that last drive because it's a 2-minute situation. Quarterbacks are judged on 3rd down, they're judged on 2-minute, and they're judged on red zone. Those are how you judge quarterbacks, because that's what's tough. Throwing play action pass on 1st and 10 against a single eye safety with great receivers isn't hard. I think they're going to continue to open it. Ryan likes to grow things, and his guys prove they can handle them, give them more. He doesn't want to just sit there, Schlegs, and try to just stuff it all in your beak at once. He wants to feed it to you at a medium pace.
Yep. Hey, I'm gonna say this. You saw some of the route combinations starting to develop, and the only reason those longer route combos that can develop to go across the field happen if you have great protection. And part of that is they're having confidence in our offensive line to be able to protect our quarterback. We also saw Kyle be able to go make a positive play out of it when he scrambled and got 5 or 6 yards here or there, keep the chains moving. I think they are going to open it up, but they're going to open it up through some of those route combinations, because now he's kind of seeing what is his team's identity, especially going against a top 5 defense in Notre Dame.
It was pretty impressive. They had an unbelievable game plan coming in. You saw them open it up. You saw Kyle make the big throws, and Ryan will continue to feed guys more and more. If you watch, that's why Ohio State, they always seem, well, excluding Michigan, the offenses has grown each and every year. And that's why you saw them play so well in the Georgia game last year in the Peach Bowl, because they knew what they ultimately needed to do. They were going to play hard and they were going to get it taken care of. So I was very, very impressed with what they were able to do there. One more quick question, Slags. Biggest concern, this comes out as from Sean Jimenez. What's your biggest concern with the team after last night's win? What are we most excited about?
Well, hey, listen, biggest concern is this. The best teams you're going to play in the Big Ten, run the football. It's going to come down to that. That's Michigan and Penn State. So I like where we are. I think some of those things inside are gonna get fixed. And that's my only concern, because that's what they do, man. They do it at a high level. Both those teams' defenses are really good. I will say this though, I'm really excited for this defense this year, because they can win these types of games playing the defense that they played last night. And I'm excited to see that, because that's complementary football. Guys, you're not going to go out versus, a top 5 defense in Michigan and Penn State and just throw up 42 points. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to grind some of these wins, and it's going to take everybody doing their part.
Absolutely. And that's what was most impressive, Schlegs, with you. A little bit of concern, continue to get the offensive line figured out, continue to run the football. That's going to continue to grow as a season, because you need to be able to run it against teams, the Penn States, the Michigans, and you've got to be able to stop the run, and they'll continue to work on that. Man, really excited about this offense, what they can do, and then especially the defense. And Ryan has shown now we don't have to go score 49 every game. We'll lean into our defense. We'll play it. We'll get it done that way, and that's how we'll ultimately win. All right, coming up, final segment. We will wrap up the show. We'll give you our parting thoughts about the Buckeyes, what's going on, the bye week, maybe a little Penn State talk, Michigan, how they look this weekend as well. Anthony Schlegel, the Bobby Carpenter Show, right here on the Big Play Network. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show with my man, Anthony Schlegel, as we wrap up this edition, this wonderful edition after a thrilling victory over Notre Dame in South Bend. Felt really good, Schleg.
Yes.
I don't know if my heart can take too many more of those games. At about 2:30, someone asked, hey, we're going to be flying up to the game. If you can be over here at 3, you can leave with us. We got an extra ticket. I'm glad I didn't go. It would have been a remarkable experience, but I don't know if I could have watched that in person and like been okay around a bunch of people. It's too much for me to handle this stuff now because we do all these things, and it's not that it impacts my life in a great way, but I got to relive it every day on the radio. I got to relive it with you. We talk about all this stuff, and it's great and it's awesome, but I want to talk about good things. And so if you could have promised me that they were going to score and win, I would have been happy about it. But on the way there, man, that was a bumpy ride.
Yep. I'll just say this. Like we talk about living live, and for me, I got a 17-year-old and almost 16-year-old, and I had all their friends over at our house. We're watching the game. I had some other parents. I'm watching that. We're talking ball. I'm trying to take notes on this game, but I'm just in the game. I'm a fan. I truly enjoyed watching this. And it's also, this is old school when you and I played, Bob, Big Ten defenses. Like right now, Ohio State's ranked 6th. I think Michigan is ranked 3rd, and Penn State is ranked 1st in total defense. Like we play them both. We play one on October 21st, and we play that team up north at the end of the season. Like I can't wait to watch it as a fan, but there's a lot of games that are going to be in between that. So I'm just excited for me, knowing Ryan, knowing this team, knowing the players and the coaches. I'm excited for their growth and development week by week, taking one step closer to being their max potential.
Absolutely. And we got Iowa that's going to be coming up around the Halloween weekend. Iowa looking good against, or not Iowa, Penn State rather.
Yeah.
Halloween weekend taking on Iowa. They looked good against Iowa. Were able to, against a good Hawkeye defense, no offense for Iowa in that game.
0, 6 fumbles.
They're able to pull away. Michigan, a little slow start against Rutgers. I think Rutgers is better than what they've been in the past. But Jim Harbaugh on his return to Michigan, ultimately getting the win there. So that was a nice one for Michigan. So both of those teams, I think, look as advertised and feeling pretty good about where they're at. Are you as confident today on the Buckeyes, Schlegs, in about 30 seconds as you were at the beginning of the season, or are you more confident or less confident?
I'm way more confident, and I'm confident because of our defense. I've seen the physicality. I've seen them against the pass. I mean, again, you got Sam Hartman, 6 years, 40 points every single game. They got 14 guys. I mean, our defense has taken a step this year, and then you just need to continue to take those steps. So I feel really good of this because of where our defense is, because we all know Ryan's capability as a caller offensively, what he's done historically at Ohio State. I'm good with the offense. The defense, boom, silver bullets. Let's go.
They're looking good, feeling good. It was a phenomenal situation they were in. Hey, it's the Bobby Carpenter Show. It's on the Big Play Network. We're going to be coming at you each and every week for the whole season. So lock it in. We'll be ready to rock.